Cinema Worms.
Discussing everything from Grima Wormtongue to the Shy Halib.
I'm Sabib.
And I'm Linz.
And this is Cinema Worms Podcast. It was common in the silent film era for musical groups to play off camera while the actors were acting to get them moving at particular paces and with a particular mood. So we're going to discuss Black Bag, which was a film we actually saw, I think, a few weeks ago. And it is the latest film from director Steven Soderbergh by a script from David Cope. So Black Bag is a spy drama in the classic sense about a well-established and high-up intelligence agent. George Woodhouse, played by Michael Fassbender, and his wife, Catherine, presuming her last name is Woodhouse. I couldn't find it on my quick Google search. Anyway, they're fabulous, and she's played by Cate Blanchett. They're high up in this intelligence agency. They love each other and devoted to each other, but they have their secrets between them. So a bit of important intelligence technology goes missing, and it's sort of tasked to Michael Fassbender's character to find out who did it. And it may be that his wife is involved. So then the question is, will he be loyal to his wife or his country? Other characters that are suspects are played by Marissa Abala, Naomi Harris, Tom Burke, and Regé-Jean Page of Bridgerton fame. And also Pierce Brosnan is there, being amazing in his few scenes.
Pierce Brosnan actually kind of steals the show, just because Pierce Brosnan is classic. We actually missed the first minute or so of the film, but I don't think we missed anything crucial that allowed us to follow the plot. The idea of the black bag is that when you work in intelligence, there are elements of your life that you must keep from your loved ones, and so everything goes into the black bag. And so in that case, how do you trust? When you don't know who your spouse is or what they're doing, how can you trust them? So this was a very stylish film. I think we can agree on that. I was actually quite interested in the dialogue. I was worried that it was going to veer into trite, but it stayed on the edge of being entertaining, witty without actually being cringe, which is a really hard line to walk. That's pretty typical of Soderbergh. He manages to pull off the things that he pulls off. I did have my suspicions about the mole from the start for various reasons, and I was right, and I can't explain that because
you always know who did it.
I know, it's really frustrating. Thank you very much. You know, it is a special skill, and you know, if MI5, if you're listening and recruiting, I am here for you. So I can't explain, as I said, that because of spoilers, but suffice to say, if you pay attention to how people react when certain information is revealed, then it's pretty clearly telegraphed, for me anyway. I was expecting there to be more twists or unexpected things happening. It just felt like I was really keeping pace quite easily with the plot as it unfolded. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think I watch things with that same approach of paying attention enough to try to figure out and foresee who the suspect really is, or the criminal that has stolen the tech. But yeah, I think, okay, what struck me, there were moments where I was both a bit confused, but I also felt like things were pretty simple. That's kind of how I describe my experience of the film. It's very streamlined, which may or may not be to your preference because its scope is really narrow in terms of how much action you're really going to get, how many twists and turns, how much of this world you're going to see. It's just going through these very streamlined beats around this bit of missing technology and these few characters. So I found that while that keeps the movie moving at a brisk pace, it also doesn't necessarily allow a lot of like complexity or fullness, at least for me. And that's obviously a stylistic choice, right? It's stylish and it's stylized. So it's meant to be glossy, fast-paced. I think I would have preferred a bit more context, a bit more time with the characters.
I would have liked more time with Pierce Brosnan.
Yes.
I would always like more time with Pierce Brosnan. Pierce, if you're listening, I would like more time with you. Okay, can I just have a shout out though for one particular scene? And I'm always a little wary of this kind of thing, but the scene that took place, the first scene that took place around the dinner table, I thought that was excellent. And I really I felt like I was on the edge of my seat for the whole thing. And I was thinking, I'm not sure how this is playing out. That really interested me.
I love that, and I completely agree. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I think that's when the movie shines.
I do agree. Yeah.
When, it's even Slow Horses. It's the same in a way as Black Bag, and there's a lot of fast-paced quippiness, but it's not always as sharply written when you really listen to the dialogue as you think. Like sometimes it's a bit, it's just not as witty as you would think it would be in the moment. But the film really shines when it's being confrontational and mean.
Mm-hmm. Oh, when Michael Fassbender is given the opportunity to be, basically a socialized psychopath, it is super fun. When that man puts on a turtleneck, you're in for a good time. Yes. And I agree that this film is really stylish. It's really fun. The costuming is absolutely incredible. I wanted to wear everything that everyone was wearing. But if you are quite familiar with this sort of spy genre, I don't think you're going to be surprised by much in this film, but it is a pretty good time. Last night we went to see Death of a Unicorn. This is the new A24 film written and directed by Alex Schwartzman, who previously directed films like Resurrection and Blow the Man Down. The film features quite a packed cast, with Paul Rudd playing scientist-cum-welcome Elliot Kinter and Jenna Ortega playing his daughter Ridley, a name that is completely wasted in this film. The Kinters are on their way to spend the weekend with the terminally ill boss of Elliot's company, Odell Leopold, played by Richard E. Grant, and his family, who are played by Tia Leone and Will Poulter. So Elliot's hope here is to get Mr. Leopold to sign legal documents which confirm Elliot's position as next in line to the company throne when Leopold dies. However, Elliot unexpectedly hits an animal while driving to the estate, which turns out to be a creature of legend, a unicorn. But it is not a unicorn in the nice, pretty princess petting zoo way that you would think. These things literally have horns and teeth and claws. I am going to rip this film apart. Please say the nice things first before I do that.
Why? I don't want to.
You're supposed to be
so
good cop, bad cop.
You can undermine my middling criticism with your scathing criticism.
Yes.
No, I would love for you to go first. I'm very... okay. So, Death of a Unicorn. Interestingly, I didn't... which we often don't do before we record these, look up any reviews. But because it's a film that's kind of skated under the radar, I genuinely have no idea how it's supposed to be marketed, how it was received. So totally my opinion, subjective opinion. It's definitely a flawed film and a lot of missed opportunities, but Linz hates it. I did not hate it. I had a fun enough time with the film. It's this very bizarre mashup of tones and genres where it's sort of absurdist horror, dark comedy, a bit of more broad actiony fantasy fun, and it's very willing to be bizarre and weird. There's a lot of that I like about the look of the unicorn and the setup, and Jenna Ortega's character. I believe her as this smart, bit of a rebellious teenager. Her character had a lot of heart. Will Poulter was hilarious. He was killing it at every moment that he was in the film. He was just a complete idiot who's too smart at times, and a rich buffoon. And I wanted just more from the film, specifically, even just look at the cinematography and the set design. There's really nothing to it. It's this glossy nothingness. I didn't even I was just thinking the interior of this mansion is just cluttered and uninteresting to me, given we're spending so much time here. It just, that felt chaotic and uninspired. I want more from the characters. The rich people, they're just sort of stock rich people other than Will Poulter. The conflict between the daughter and the father fell a bit flat because it's just a one-note repetitive thing. We're not getting into this grief that they've experienced. the confrontations with the unicorns also feel repetitive because they're just coming in over and over to impale the next person, which is fun. I like the gore.
Oh, I was
more gore.
I think it was quite early on. I leaned over to you and said, I am on the side of the unicorns.
Yeah.
I hope these people get impaled because, you know, so you've been making music recently via GarageBand, and you've been using like stock sounds for things. And it's interesting that you use the word stock because these feel like tropes that were selected from a list and slotted in. It is exactly as you say, it is chaotic, it is uninspired. This was my Love Hurts. This was the worst film that I have seen this year by a long shot. I would actually rather... I look forward to watching Love Hurts again. I would watch it twice in a row.
We deeply disagree on this point. That's insane.
Okay. I would watch Love Hurts twice in a row than ever see this film again. Not even Will Poulter's comic timing could save it, and I do agree that he managed to be quite a bright spark here. Jenna Ortega is lost in... They gave her so many, like, quippy little Gen Z lines that it just really annoyed me. I was like, no freaking 14-year-old or 15-year-old is going to talk like this, no matter how Tumblr they are. Paul Rudd feels really out of place. Weirdly miscast for me. He's awkward in a way that should suit the character, but he doesn't. It is surprisingly cringe. I considered leaving at one point, which is not something I would tend to do ever in a film. And listen, people who are listening to this, I sat through the entirety of the Dark Tower movie. So, and Cats. So I just want you to know how big of a statement that is. I genuinely did hate this film. It had all the potential to be a unicorn Jurassic Park. The unicorns even growl like dinosaurs. There was no tension. One of the great things about Jurassic Park is, although you were introduced to the herbivores quite early on, you are kept from seeing the T-Rex purposefully. And when you finally see the T-Rex, when it approaches the car that they're stuck in, it's dark. You only see bits, like you see the water shaking first, you see this, and I feel like they were like, the unicorns, yeah, we have the baby, you know, and therefore the bigger ones are coming. Okay, but you could hold off on letting us see exactly what the bigger ones look like. We really want to know and feel that tension building up before you see the beast. If you reveal the beast too soon, well then, you know, we're not really scared. We kind of know, and it doesn't help that the CGI is not great either.
I didn't hate the CGI as much as you.
Well, it just looked kind of cheap. It just didn't look great.
When you're staring at them directly, which
Yeah.
I think, you know, you can hold off on doing, then it's a bit unforgiving, you know?
Yeah. If you kept that to the end, and a lot of the later parts happen at night, that lent itself well, because there is a certain fear that you could inherit in a beast chasing you in the darkness, which is really nice. The dialogue was really terrible, quite apart from Jenna Ortega's horrible little lines. The emotion of it that you talked about, like the grief between Elliot and Ridley, having lost wife and mother, and failing to kind of bridge the emotional gap between father and daughter there. And it felt very phoned in. We didn't really kind of get much of a chance to see why that should be kind of a satisfying bit of closure at the end. It just didn't really work. It was a really cool premise, and I'm annoyed that it wasn't well done, because it could have been excellent. It could have been a series of really excellent films. It just was misused in every possible way. And yeah, the house itself the setting did not really lend itself well to this. It was quite stock, you know. I'm gonna forget that I saw this. I hope that I forget that I saw this, but I will probably forget, and it just, yeah, it actively annoyed me, I think, in a specific way. When I go and see a film like this, like a monster film, I do want you to, you know, to be able to feel afraid of the monster. There shouldn't be many parts where I am actively rooting for the characters to be gored to death, if you that's what you want. But that's kind of what was happening here. So it wasn't even a fun popcorn film that I could watch and kind of, you know, enjoy on that basis.
So, some final points. Yeah, I would have a less harsh view of the film. Although, I mean, you could say everything you said is true. I do think that there is a lot of to be celebrated in terms of an original idea like this that is just weird and willing to go for something very unexpected, and is not a sequel or adaptation to my knowledge. So that's cool, and I really like what it's attempting to do in moments, and it has lots of like moments of being just heartfelt, imaginative.
What? No, it didn't.
That then unfortunately gets subsumed in some wasted opportunities. But I found it very watchable, perhaps forgettable.
Watchable, perhaps forgettable. Definitely the tagline you want for your film.